next Monday, I just show up.
Yep, just show up.
Just a couple of days now.
If you want your name put in, I'll put your name
Linda,
down for
you might have to
VP and
remind
we'll
me
be all set.
of the changes and.
Hello, how are you?
Yes, I will do there. Yeah, I'll do that. Because you have a couple of things.
Mike picked up.
And we won't see you again for, we'll see you online.
Okay. What days does,
She does Monday and Thursday.
Yeah, I got my board meeting on Wednesday.
So, and I
with
sent
the
an
office.
email
Today she was having
saying,
a kid
please,
today, so they
please
could
bring a
come and
mask
dig
because that
potatoes
changed
and
today.
she
So,
said.
that's
Which is pretty neat.
yeah, so that's why, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't put it on the agenda. And I'm like, oh, that's because I wasn't sure if he was coming. And so I just had to get it.
And Monica said thank you.
Yeah,
And I
because
just-
he's not appointed until the commission interviews and accepts
just
him.
couldn't
So
produce enough
that'll be a new,
for the
that's one of your first
Sworn in?
motions.
hook up.
Right.
Sworn in? We are ready,
Good
Mr. Chair.
potatoes once. I didn't
We're live.
find them worth it.
Oh, we're live,
We
okay.
are live.
And
You
it's
can do
time.
it just for yourself.
We're live and it's time.
Last week it was live over there.
Hey, keep your-
No, you don't have to, that's how we knew we were.
Oh, turn off our mic.
Yep.
Your newsletter that dropped off at your house? Good. I've already heard it's got the wrong date in my letter.
How do I get in? I put my guest in, right?
Mansfield.
Mansfield. Lowercase?
All lowercase, yep.
All right.
We are streaming on YouTube and we're good.
We're good to go. Okay. I call to order the August 2nd Inland Wetlands Agency meeting at 6:32 p.m. Members present are Aho, Acorsi, Cotton, Frattoni, Plant, Ron, Ward, and alternate DeVivo, who's seated for absent members Chandy and Cooley. We have minutes from July 6th. Is my voice being picked up through the mask? Hopefully. Yeah. We have minutes from July 6th for the IWA.
I propose that we accept them.
I'll second.
Moved by Frattoni, seconded by...
No,
Oh, moved by Plant. Moved by Plant, second by Ward. All in favor? All right. Okay, passed unanimously. We had no communication from the Conservation Commission. There's a Wetlands Agency agent report in the packet. We have any comments?
no, just a lot of agent approvals.
Okay, all right. We have a application to receive for application of C Funk for driveway culvert replacement at 48 Separatist Road. Someone like to put that motion forward.
Ward moves to receive the application submitted by C Funk for driveway culvert replacement at 48 Separatist Road, Assessor's Parcel ID 15.32.19, as shown on site plans dated 7/29/21, and as described in application submissions, and to refer said application to staff and the Conservation Commission for review and comment.
Moved by Ward, second by DeVivo. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Permit application. There's communication about permit by use of pesticides. No reports from officers' committees. We can adjourn.
You need a field trip.
We need a field trip. All right. I know we're not gonna break the record.
No, okay, we can though. So I'm thinking we do Thursday, I think it's the 19th. I don't have my calendar. Do you? Mine's my the 19th. Would Thursday the 19th at 4 o'clock work for folks?
Works for me.
Yeah. Actually, the Conservation Commission meets on the 18th, so how about Tuesday the 17th? Tuesday, the 17th?
Yeah, we'll say four,
Same time.
yeah, 4 p.m.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, very good. We are adjourned.
And I take it that this is for the Severance Road.
Correct, yeah.
We are adjourned at 6:35. That might be a record.
4 minutes.
Olympic.
No, it was
Late
3.
start.
You
It was
adjourned at,
3.
Oh,
You'd start
the
till
record is
6:32.
3. Oh, it's 3. Okay.
You did it in 3 minutes.
So maybe we get the gold medal on that. It's just the Olympics.
at least bronze.
At least
Well,
bronze.
you know what?
Okay.
Any place is good.
Any medal is good. All right.
I'm gonna,
Just going to the Olympics is good. That would be my opinion. But
Okay, this one's going to take a little longer. Planning zoning. I call to order the Planning Zoning Commission meeting of August 2nd at 6:35 p.m. Just as the agenda says, 6:35 p.m. Members present are Aho, Corsi, Cotton, Frattoni, Plant, Ron, Ward, and alternate DeVivo. Seated for absent members Chandy and Cooley. We have minutes from July 22nd. Special meeting. That was our early special, 6 o'clock early special.
I move that we accept the
Okay.
minutes as written.
Moved by Corsi,
I'll second.
second by Frattoni. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, passed unanimously. We have a public hearing. We have public hearings.
So you also need to add a few items
Oh,
to
yes.
your
Okay.
agenda,
All
and so we may go a little out of order because even though I scheduled your hearings 5 minutes apart, your first 2 are going to be continued. So we
Okay.
may get through them quicker. But you do have 2 new business items to add to your agenda, and
Can we add them one at a time?
yeah, that's fine.
So I'll be glad to add, to move to add the nomination of alternate from the Republican Town Committee to the agenda as new business item B. That is, if he arrives in time for that.
Okay. Moved by Ward,
Second.
second by Plant. All in favor? Okay, so if he arrives,
Yes.
that's fine.
That's
If he
fine.
doesn't, we'll do it next time.
Okay.
No problem. So we have a second motion. This is so that we can discuss the alcoholic beverage
Yes.
situation. Okay. Yes, we are moving from damp to wet, right?
Slowly.
Slowly. We're slightly more wet than damp. Okay, got it. Okay, we have a motion about that. Ken?
Yeah, move to add, Planning and Zoning Commission initiated amendments to Article 7 of the zoning regulations related to the manufacture and sale of alcoholic liquor as new business item C.
Moved by Ron,
I'll second it.
second by Ward. All in favor? Okay, moved, passed unanimously. And we'll get to that later, right? After
Well,
the public hearings?
Potentially, it will depend on how quickly we're moving here. So
Okay.
we'll get started. We can move down to your public hearings for 6:35 p.m. if you want to introduce that.
Okay. So I need to take the roll again, right?
Yeah, so the public hearing scheduled for 6:35 p.m. is the special permit application of Haven Communities LLC, applicant KRCL LLC and E&I Associates LLC owners for a mixed-use project including 399 residential units and approximately 21,000 square feet of commercial space on 3 parcels located at 1717, 1733, and 1753 Stores Road. Assessor's parcel IDs 8.15.10, 8.15.9, 8.15.8, and an adjacent vacant parcel. Assessor's parcel ID 8.15.9-1, and this is PZC file 1372 rather.
Okay, the public hearing is opened at 6:39 p.m. Members present, Aho, Corsi, Cotton, Frattoni, Plant, Ron, Ward, and alternate DeVivo, who is seated.
Mr. Chair, the applicant has indicated that they are not ready to proceed at this time. There are you do have a communication from John Nuff, who is their attorney, in your packet, which is both a request to continue the hearing as well as a grant of extension pursuant to state statute. You also have a communication from NB Moriarty, and I apologize, I don't have a name. They did not give us a name, so I just have the email, which came in on July 12th, 2021. There is a motion to adjourn this hearing until August 30th on your agenda, or on your motion sheet, rather.
Okay.
Did they say they were ready by that time? I thought they gave September dates
They,
and October dates.
yes, and I followed up with an email because it was kind of like it was August 30th or maybe September 20th, and they basically said we'd like to keep our options open, so let's go with August 30th for now, and then if they need to continue again, they will.
Okay.
Okay. So, Linda, that's a possibility then, that they may
Continue again?
continue again?
Yes.
Okay.
Not a guarantee, but a possibility.
Okay, would someone like to put that, I think the motion's in the
Yeah.
agenda, yeah.
And just before before you do the motion, just for the record and for the public, this hearing actually was opened on July 6th, which is why we did not read the legal notice or go down the list of communications.
Okay.
So Ward, I move to adjourn the public hearing on the special permit application of Haven Communities, PZ file 1372, to Monday, August 30th, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. in the council chamber for, no,
It'll be virtual.
Or,
Thank you. Via virtual meeting.
to Monday, August 30th, 2021 at 6:45 and as a virtual meeting.
And information on how to participate in the meeting will be included on the meeting agenda.
Ditto.
Okay. Okay. Moved by Ward, second by Plant. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, passed unanimously. Okay, we have a second public hearing. Also continued. Right?
So your next public hearing was scheduled to open this evening at 6:40 p.m. It is the special permit application of Robert Cardinal and owner applicant for earthwork in excess of maximum permitted by Article 10, Section H.2, associated with construction of a new single-family dwelling on Pleasant Valley Road, Assessor's Parcel ID 36.88.90, PZC File 1375. And as this hearing is opening this evening, I do need to read the legal notice. So bear with me while I pull that up. We did not include this in the digital packet. So, Julene, can you run back and get the file on that? I apologize for that hold. There may be another way for me to find this. Hold on. I am going to apologize to Jolene for sending her back, but I was actually able to pull this up a different way.
Don't tell her.
So the following notice was published in the Hartford Courant on July 22nd and July 28th, 2021. Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing notice. The Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold the following public hearing on Monday, August 2nd, 2021 in the Council Chamber AP Beck Building, 4 South Eagleville Road, Mansfield, Connecticut, to hear comments regarding the following application. At 6:40 p.m., special permit application of Robert Cardinal, owner applicant for earthwork in excess of the maximum permitted by Article 10, Section H of the zoning regulations on property located on Pleasant Valley Road, southwest of Mansfield Avenue, Assessor's Parcel ID 36.88.90, PZC File 1375. No information from the public shall be received after the close of the public hearings. Additional information regarding this application is available in the planning office. Paul Aho, Chair, Vera Ward, Secretary. So the applicant, in this case, we had a notice issue where the abutter notices did not go out at least 10 days in advance as required. So we are requesting that this hearing be continued until August 30th. as well, with the exception that on this one we are recommending a time of 6:35 p.m. And again, the correction will be as a virtual meeting. And information on how to participate in the meeting will be included on the meeting agenda.
Can I make the motion?
Yes, please do.
Be my first motion. I move to adjourn the hearing on the special permit application of Robert Cardinal for property on Pleasant Valley Road to 6:35 p.m. on Monday, August 30th, 2021, virtually, and instructions to.
Information on how to participate in the meeting will be included on the meeting agenda.
Yes.
Okay, moved by DeVivo,
Second.
second by Ward. All in favor? All right, passed unanimously. Okay, now we have one that we can actually talk about. And we're on time.
Yes.
46, all right.
So do we don't have to adjourn. It was adjourned at what time?
Oh, yes,
6:46.
6:46, yes, I need to say that. Thank you, Vera.
So the next public hearing on your agenda is the special permit application of Glisten Diamonds, applicant, and Anthony Radji, owner, for a change in non-conforming use to authorize a research laboratory at 483 Stores Road. Parcel ID 29.96.16, PZC file 1366-2.
So, as I understand it, we were waiting for the Wyndham Waterworks.
Yes, but you need to do the time it's opened and the people.
Oh, okay. Because we're starting a new public hearing, right? Okay.
It's a continuation, but
Okay.
you still need to.
Okay, at 6:47, we open the special permit application of Glisten Diamonds with members present: Aho, Corsi, Cotton, Fertoni, Plant, Ron, Ward, and alternate DeVivo. What else do we have to do to open it?
That's it.
That's it. Okay.
So the chair is correct. This hearing actually opened on July 13th. We continued again on July 22nd, and we were primarily waiting for feedback from Wyndham Waterworks because of the nature of the use and the fact that the site is located within the public drinking water supply watershed. In your packet, and on we did receive communications from Wyndham Waterworks indicating that they don't have objections to this use based on the information that was provided to them. I did include an updated communication from Thad King of Eastern Highlands Health District. That was one of Wyndham Waterworks' questions, was whether or not he had reviewed the additional information provided by Dr. Homan during this July 13th public hearing. Mr. King did indicate that he reviewed it and again had no change to his opinion or his decision. The applicant did answer. John McMahon of Glisten did respond to specific questions from Superintendent Turgeon from Wyndham Waterworks in an email dated July 27th, 2021. So that is also included in the record for your information in terms of the response they provided. And lastly, we did add one item today for you from Dr. Homan. I know at the July 13th meeting he had talked about in his presentation how the site would meet the performance standards of the regulations. We did ask him to provide that in writing. So he did provide an email today which was uploaded to the packet. So that is from James Nathan Holman, PhD, Performance Standards Information, and that's an August 2nd, 2021 email. The last piece of information that we have for you this evening is a supplemental agenda item report from myself dated July 29th, 2021. And then just verbally, I wanted to update the commission and say that Dr. Homan and I had been talking about the volume of chemicals, both in terms of disposal as well as what would be kept on site. And I'm going to ask him to correct me in case I get this wrong, but I believe that it is 3 liters per month would be the absolute maximum in terms of chemicals to be disposed of. And then 60 liters in terms of storage. And one of the things that Dr. Homan pointed out to me during those email communications is that they haven't even moved in the building, and there's probably 4 liters of chemicals in that just in the storage closet for cleaning supplies, which we never think about or ask. So he wanted to kind of put that in In perspective,
In perspective.
in perspective, so the 60 liters is approximately 12 gallons. So, and again, I think these are really the maximum numbers that they're looking at. And just like all of our applicants with special permits, we encourage them to tell us, what do you think the top is going to be, so that they're not having to come back to you repeatedly and go, I underestimated what I thought I was going to do. And again, the hazardous chemicals that they'll be working with, as identified during that first public hearing, will be in sealed cartridges when they come to the site. So there's no open beakers of the hazardous chemicals they're using. So if there are any questions, Dr. Homan is here to answer them. If not,
Any questions?
I had real quickie.
Yeah.
In reference to the cleaning materials, they the kind of things that I could find commercially if I walked into across the street? Good enough.
probably what you have in your house.
Yeah. I assumed that, but I wanted to hear it.
Yeah, so that was just, again, that was more, I think, Dr. Holman, if you can come forward and just clarify in the microphone, but you may have to turn it on so the green light is on. Yep.
Yes, that's a really important question. So in reviewing the site, we took a look in the storage closet, and there was a bottle of bleach, ammonia, and I can't remember the brand of the floor cleaner, but
You're forgiven.
no problem. I didn't want to be in a situation where we had a few extra bottles of chemicals, for example, something like ethanol, something like rubbing alcohol, isopropanol. I can point out that when you purchase these supplies, we usually purchase 4-liter bottles at a time for cost purposes. So
My question is
Okay.
answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a question, in your email to the water department, you mentioned you're only gonna get one cartridge of the you put into your spectrometer, or whatever the name, it describes it, so I was under the assumption you got two, like, I don't know if that was just misquoted, or, I assumed you bought them in groups of two, I don't know if that's, I'm wrong, then.
That's a good question. So we are planning on purchasing one of these cartridges and hooking it up to the instrumentation. However, eventually we're going to need a new one. So we would tend to want to order them before we ran out. So I would presume that we would have an extra one on the shelf, and then ready to switch that piece in, and then we would be returning the stainless steel container back to the company for refilling. The total amount of material that we're talking about here, these units come in a few different sizes. We've been targeting the smallest size as our as our operating target. So we're talking about less than a kilogram of the actual material of interest.
Okay, does anyone see any reason to keep this hearing open? If not,
Move to close the hearing.
okay. Moved by Ron, second by Ward. All in favor? Okay, hearing is adjourned at 6:53. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is Carl here?
We're still under old business, so
Oh, we're under old business.
we're under old business.
Okay. Okay, so now we go to old business, and application of Haven Communities is tabled till the closure of the public hearing. Permit application of Glisten Diamonds. Now, we can discuss that. Oh, okay, all right. Any discussion about the application of Glisten Diamonds?
No, we have a motion.
We have a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, I'll
We have a
put that
motion
forward, and
Yep,
we'll go from there.
okay.
Move to approve the May 25th, 2021 special permit application of Glisten Diamonds, applicant Anthony Raggi, owner, to allow the conversion of the lower floor of the Grange building to a research and development lab as described in other application submissions and is presented at public hearings on June 13, June 22, and August 2nd, 2021. Pursuant to Article 5, Section B.4 of the Mansfield zoning regulations, the site plan requirements contained in Section B.3.d are hereby waived as there is no proposed expansion of the building or site improvements, and the information is not needed to determine compliance with zoning regulations. This approval is granted because the application is not expected to result in any detrimental neighborhood impacts and is considered to be in compliance with Article 9, Section 3.b, Article 5, Section B, and other provisions of the Mansfield zoning regulations, and is granted with the following conditions. 1, extent of approval. This approval is based on the applicant's submissions and the conditions cited in this motion. Unless modifications are specifically authorized, the proposed uses shall be limited to those authorized by this approval. Any questions regarding authorized uses, additional site improvements, and conditions cited in this approval shall be reviewed with the zoning agent and the Director of Planning and Development, and as deemed necessary, the PZC. 2, historic village review. Due to the property's location in a designated historic village, PZC approval is required for any site or building alterations, including signs, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit. 3, chemicals. The type of chemical substances authorized and the way in which they are used and managed shall be described in application submissions presented during the public hearing and in the July 27, 2021 email from John McMahon to Michael Turgeon. The spill remediation kits identified by the applicant shall be in place prior to the use of any chemical substances. Residual chemicals shall be disposed of by a hazardous waste contractor and shall not be released into the building's wastewater system. The maximum amount of chemical waste stored on premises shall not exceed 3 liters in any month, and the maximum amount of chemical substances stored in the lab shall not exceed 60 liters, approximately 16 gallons. 4, validity. This special permit shall not become valid until filed upon the land records by the applicant.
Moved by Ron,
I'll second.
second by Ward. Any discussion? Seems pretty straightforward to me. Let's get that building occupied.
Let's go.
Let's move toward a vote. Those in favor, say aye. Passed unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Holman.
Thank you for your patience.
All right. So the next one is the Champagne Toy Store. Application of Champagne Toy Store to amend Articles 4, 7, 8, and 10 to authorize drive-through facilities in the PB1 zone. And we do have a motion for that. Should we have a discussion after the motion or before the motion?
I would suggest let's read the motion so we know what it is specifically we're being asked to either accept or not. Since Linda discussed with me and I suggested, that we write an approval motion, I'll read it aloud and we'll carry on from there.
Let's go. Let's do that.
Move to approve the application of the Champagne Toy Store LLC PZZ File 1374 to amend Articles 4, 7, 8, and 10 of the Mansfield zoning regulations to establish provisions for drive-through facilities and to authorize drive-through facilities accessory to restaurants in the PB1 zone with special permit approval, as presented in a draft revised to July 22nd, 2021, and is heard at a public hearing on July 22nd, 2021. This approval is subject to the following revisions to address concerns regarding capacity of small sites to accommodate 2 full-service drive-through facilities and to eliminate the general use of the word character pursuant to recent changes in Section 8-2 of the Connecticut General Statutes. Amend proposed Article 10, Section X.3 to read as follows. A minimum lot size of 1 acre shall be required for 1 drive-through facility on a site. Minimum lot size of 1.5 acres shall be required for 2 drive-through facilities, subject to the limitation that only one of the drive-through facilities may include a full-service window or windows. In no event shall there be more than 2 drive-through facilities on any site. Amend proposed Article 10, Section X.C, 6C, bracket C, to read as follows. The proposed parking layout aesthetically conforms with the physical context and design of the neighboring properties, and delete proposed Article 10, Section X.6, bracket D. In approving these changes, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered all public hearing testimony and communications and hereby makes the following findings in approval of these amendments, subject to any revisions incorporated in the approval motion. The amendments promote the statutory goals identified in Section 8-2 of the Connecticut General Statutes and other zoning purposes cited in Article 1 of Mansfield zoning regulations. The amendments are consistent with the plan of development, particularly goals 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, and 6.5 related to economic development. The amendments are appropriately worded, legally sound, suitably coordinated with other provisions of the Mansfield zoning regulations. The amendments will promote the public's health, safety, property values, and general welfare. Furthermore, the subject regulations are adopted for the following reasons. The amendments as revised by this motion provide specific standards for all types of drive-through facilities. The amendments limit the use of drive-through facilities associated with restaurants to the PB1 zone, which is more automobile-oriented than other planned business zones due to roadway configuration, presence of a limited access highway, and existing development patterns. The amendments provided for the auto-oriented drive-through facility used while requiring incorporation of features that support pedestrians to provide access to both modes of transportation. The requirement for special permit approval for the drive-through facilities associated with restaurants provides the Commission with the ability to review specific projects for compliance with the regulations as well as impacts on the neighboring properties.
Moved by Ron.
Sorry, there's one more line.
Oh, one more line.
The amendment shall become effective August 15, 2021,
Okay. Moved by Ron,
which is important.
second by DeVivo. Okay, now we can discuss.
I know that we either approve or we disapprove. We can't rewrite the regulations ourselves. They have to come to us for either to approve or disapprove, correct?
You can make revisions, and I did run this motion by the town attorney. So that is within your purview. That's the purpose of the public hearing, so that you can make revisions to what is proposed based on.
So we could make changes in this motion
Yes.
tonight. Well, if we can do that, I am totally against 2 drive-in windows. I don't care what they're limited or full service on one site. I came up through 195 on a weekday afternoon this past week, a week before this, and early afternoon there was a line at McDonald's of their drive-through that goes in and around almost up to 195, 1 car short. So that's a lot of traffic for that one area. And also at McDonald's, one of the things that I've always thought was wrong is the drive-through goes through with parking for the restaurant on either side, so people are crossing back and forth. So that's one of the things we'll want to watch when we see the layout. So I would say I wouldn't care if it was full service or limited, but I would say only one drive. We've been saying no drive-ins, and now we're gonna jump to 2 on one site. I think we could do that more slowly and see how this works out. So I would only be interested in one drive-in, drive-through window. And the other thing is, we've never met a traffic study that wasn't going to be okay for the new development. So I think in something to do with this that's so involved in traffic, and the flow of it, that we should have the right to ask the developer, to have the developer pay for a traffic consultant that's not their traffic consultant. I think that was a mistake that we made on a previous application, and I think we just have to be careful about that because this is so traffic concentrated. So that's my thoughts.
Katie?
Okay. I need a clarification. I know I can picture in my mind a regular drive-through, like what McDonald's is, or a bank drive-through, a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through. What is a partial one? I mean, would it just be a window and people drive up in their cars, get out of their cars and go to a window to get it? Or what? I can't.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's okay. This is and as was mentioned by the applicant during the public hearing, this distinction was added after the traffic authority met, and it was because the full service drive-through is what you think of as McDonald's. So that is where you're pulling up to a microphone, a menu board, you're ordering, and then there's a few spaces, and then you're pulling up to the window to pay and pick up your food. The limited service window is where you're not ordering. So you don't get out of your vehicle, but you are going and you're picking up so all of your food everything was pre-ordered. So you pre-ordered over the phone, online, maybe you paid, maybe you didn't, but you're not actually ordering. So there's no menu board, there's no microphone. You're literally just pulling directly up to the window because you've been told your food will be ready at 6:30 p.m. and you're pulling up and saying, I placed this order. Again, you either paid online or you're paying there, but you're not ordering. So that's really the distinction, is, if you think about it, is the ordering piece, where you don't kind of have that stop, place an order, and then go pay, get your food. It is literally intended to just be a pickup window, where you've already done the rest of it prior to coming to the property.
But there's also another distinction that we said was not a drive-through, and that was where you drive up,
Correct.
call in and say, I'm in parking lot number 6, and they bring it out to you. And that we decided was okay. We go along with that, and I can see that. I mean, if they want to.
Several places already have that. 99 does, yeah.
If they want that, that's fine with me. That keeps the car still, and they.
And I wanted to just respond so on Vera's comments, you can request a peer review consultant on any type of application. Typically where we've used them, it's been on the larger ones. On something like this, quite frankly, where there is a lot of traffic intensive requirements, if you were to approve this, I think we would be looking for assistance, because
That doesn't have to be in the approval.
because the Code of Ordinances grants you the authority to bring in a peer review consultant on any application where you think it's appropriate. So that's something that you have the ability to do. It does not have to be in this regulation. You could do that on it. You could have done that. I'll give the example of the application you just approved. If you felt that you needed a peer review consultant that was an expert in chemistry, you could have said, we want to bring somebody in. So you can do that on any application where you feel you need assistance beyond what staff can provide.
Dorian?
So that was part of my question, but the other one is, how are these drive-throughs set up? Is it 2 windows on one side of the building? Like you do at McDonald's, there's 2 windows, you pay at one and then get your food on the other? Or is it 2 lanes like a bank? Some of your banks have 2 lanes.
That's really going to come during a special permit review. So that's one of the reasons this is a special permit, is because you're doing, these regulations propose to do 2 things. One, is to actually establish standards for all drive-throughs, regardless of whether or not you are a restaurant or if you are a CVS or a bank. It's establishing criteria for all drive-through facilities, which we haven't had before. So it is creating something that would apply to multiple uses. In terms of how it's designed, that really is a case-by-case basis, which is why it's a special permit, and each one may be different in terms of, there may be one of the things that I noticed when I was working with Ken on the revisions is that the definitions that were proposed are for a drive-through facility and then limited service window and full service window. The reality is you may have a drive-through facility with multiple windows because, to your point, a lot of the fast food places may have window 1 where you stop and pay, window 2 where you get your food. So
It might
you may
even be
have-
window 3
so-
to pick up your food too.
yeah. So that's really going to be that's something they would have to show in the design as part of the special permit process, where you would be evaluating, does this facility meet all of the requirements that we've set out, and is the design safe? Is this something where it meets not just the standards but also the special permit criteria?
So the time to review these things, including the parking, is when we actually have the application in front of us.
Correct.
Yep. This would be just setting up the ability to apply for.
This is your enabling legislation, saying you have the ability to come
We
in
haven't
and
enabled anything.
you have the ability to come in and ask us for a special permit. Here are the standards you have to meet, in addition to the criteria for special permit approval that you have for all special permits.
Katie.
I just wanted to ask, did anybody else interpret it that these are 2 different locations on their property? That they want 2 different businesses? Okay, all right, I just want to make sure.
No, that it could be.
And so it's not going to be a combined window, it's going to be 2 separate buildings, 2 separate entities.
It could be depending on your site. It
Oh,
could
yeah,
be a variety
one
of
side,
things.
one side, yeah.
It could be one building with 2 different businesses. One, and again, based on the revisions, if they're adopted that Ken has proposed, only one could be full service, where you're ordering and picking up and paying. The other would be limited service, where the ordering piece is done in advance. It could be a different buildings on the property. It really is. It's that, again, comes down to the special permit, site by site. I will tell you, I saw one in Massachusetts. It was same building, in middle of the building, and with 2 businesses. It was odd.
And you may remember in the last meeting, the one full service and the one not full service was an idea of Luann, to because we started out with a could it be 2, and some people say maybe 1, maybe 0, and then Luann said maybe 1.5. So we're kind of searching for the right number there, and so the motion actually came in at 1.5. Yes, Vera.
So my preference would be a minimum lot size of 1 acre shall be required for 1 drive-through facility on a site.
And so only one.
Only 1 drive-through facility on a site.
Yeah.
And the minimum would be 1 acre.
I think when I joined the commission, I think I agreed with everyone. No, we don't do drive-ins in
Well, we-
Mansfield. And
I'd like that,
I
but
think my attitude's changed a little bit with COVID, and now we're going back into COVID, and who knows what will happen in the future. I think we shouldn't pride ourselves as having no drive-ins at all. But I'm sympathetic to your idea of 1 as a baby step that way.
on a site, and we can
Yeah.
change that, but that's already two close businesses with drive-throughs.
Mhm. I could go with 1 or 1.5 or 2, whatever the rest of the commission believes. Yeah.
So would at Kohl's, would they have, you drive up and you park outside, you call in? That's a limited use. You use the McDonald's, you pull the McDonald's, they have a special spot where you have to park. And Kohl's has that. And
That's not this.
That's
that's not this, that's
No.
not limited.
that's that.
That's
So
not limited. No.
that so in that
Limited drive-up.
that came up a few months ago, and ironically it was a different site in the PB1 district that was asking us this question that said, we want to have a limited service pickup window and we don't think it's a drive-through. And we brought it to the commission and everybody said, no, if you're not getting out of your car and you're pulling up to a window just to pick up food, that is still a drive-through facility. It's not. If you're going through a lane, if you're going to a designated parking space and you're parking and someone is hand walking that stuff out to you, that was not a drive-through.
Right.
But if your car is going and you're pulling up to a window, someone's handing you the food, you're never getting at someone's in a building, you're in your car, that was deemed to be a drive-through. And so, that particular applicant held off. And we told them, we said, we believe there's an amendment coming anyway from someone else that's interested in this area.
Would it be, go ahead, Ken.
Oh, Vera, what I agree with Vera about is the size, and I think that's something that we need to be considering. If you only had an acre to an acre and a half, I'm going to have to go with Vera and say, you got one window here, that's all you're going to get on the acre and a half. And that's largely because I just don't think that something that small can handle any more than that. However, if you double that, the acre and a half to 3, do I think now you might be able to handle the traffic?
Or if
So
you're,
I think setting some kind of lot size is
or
what
if
I'm
you're,
really saying.
if you're Eastbrook Mall,
Yes,
could you handle 2?
exactly.
So Ken, I'm going to ask this question just because, so the way it was drafted by the applicant was a minimum lot size of 1 acre shall be required for 1 drive-through facility on a site. A minimum lot size of 1.5 acres shall be required for 2 drive-through facilities on a site. And then the proposed revision that we worked on was that for that 2 drive-through facilities, that would be subject to the limitation that only 1 may include a full service window or windows. Are you saying you now want to increase that acreage? And the reason I'm asking that is if that's what you're thinking, that quite frankly is probably another question I have to ask the town attorney.
If you
So could we
may or
say-
not recall or not, but when we sat and talked,
Yep.
that's really what I had in mind was, okay, increase the acreage, and then maybe you can change the lanes or the number of windows, but
Okay.
at that size,
I think 1.5 is still too small.
oh, I happen to agree with you about it, and I agree to put this forward just so we can do what we're doing now.
Right, and I appreciate that.
Does anyone know how large McDonald's property is?
Good question, Sarah.
I'm going to guess that's 1.5 acres, but I don't know.
I don't know, and I honestly, that's a question I'm not sure I can answer right now because the hearing's closed. I may have to ask the town attorney if I'm allowed to answer that for you.
Yeah, I just thought of that, sorry.
So if we wanted to fiddle with the acreages, we'd have to,
If that's what you want to do, I have to go back to the town attorney. Like, he definitely okayed this revision. We did not. I think part of it when Ken and I talked was I wasn't sure that I was comfortable coming up with acreage amounts. So this was kind of a simple revision to say, okay, you've asked for 2 drive-through facilities on a certain lot size rather than getting into defining lot sizes again. But you have a special permit. If someone comes in on 1.5 acres and it doesn't work and it doesn't fit, then you don't approve the special permit. So that's why I think we focused more on the type of facilities as opposed to the acreage, which there wasn't, that's not something I researched as part of the public hearing. So that, again, I think that was where we just kind of left that acreage alone. That was what they proposed. But again, recognizing it's a special permit, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
so if we approved this motion and someone came in with a special permit that had 1.5 acres and we said, no, you can only do 1.
You can,
Do that?
yeah, because if you look at the criteria and the standards and you say this does not, we don't think this is functioning. It's not safe. You have other issues. This opens the door to allow them to ask.
Okay.
It does not guarantee
But we
that
would
they
still
get.
have the discretion.
It's still a special permit. It's not a site plan approval.
So
It's
we could
not.
we could say you need 10 acres for 2.
You can't say that you need 10 acres. You can say what you are proposing on this 1.5 acres
Does not work.
does not work.
Right.
And we are, based on the site layout, the design, we do not believe that this meets the the standards or the special permit criteria. It opens the door for them to ask at 1.5 acres. It does not guarantee that they are getting an approval at 1.5 acres.
I don't think
I
we
would
should
suggest for
encourage
all of
one
us
and
that it's not really even acreage. It's really about traffic and safety.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing we're really thinking about is, if we allowed 2 on this 1.5 acres, what's the volume? And so that's the unknown quantity right now is, what would having 2 do for traffic on what is already,
And unfortunately, it's something
area.
you're not going to know without
yeah,
without an actual plan and a traffic study
permit
being prepared.
And
that has
does
the
it-
traffic study.
Does the state have a say on this?
They presumably they will need
There's a curb cut.
presumably they would need state approval, because again,
A couple of curb cuts, at least.
I think the state, we'd have to double check on that, but my guess is, especially when you're dealing with drive-throughs on a state road, they want to make sure that you are not backing traffic up into a state road. And so,
That was just one car away of doing that at McDonald's.
so again, those are things that would be addressed at a special permit level. It's not something
Well, I've seen McDonald's during the epidemic where it was all the way up to Eastbrook Mall and the other side.
Yeah,
Really?
yes.
Yeah, but I've also seen Liberty Bank on a Saturday, and that they're already backed out of into 195. So you have to be very careful if you're coming towards stores to go around them, because they didn't have their lobbies open, so people were had to use the drive-through. And yeah, it was a hazard because they were all the way up the street.
And I think, especially I would say early on when everything was shut down, that was, I think, particularly because you just couldn't go anywhere. So the fast food restaurants were kind of, especially before I would say sit down restaurants, kind of figured it out and figured out the pickup spaces. I mean, think about how many things were invented in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
Applebee's had the pickup spaces for years, but every restaurant had to figure that out in some way, shape, or form during the pandemic. And a lot of them are maintaining it. I mean, you drive through West Hartford today, they've got the dining outside, but they also continue to have on-street spaces that are a 30-minute pickup window for businesses.
I don't think we should give McDonald's the monopoly on having a drive.
No,
Mansfield. I think we should allow a few more, but I'm sympathetic to what Vera says. One, is there some way that we could?
I have,
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
want to say something else, if we have any idea of that area ever being walkable, I feel like adding in something like this is going to make that even more difficult, and maybe we give that up. But you see people walking along there now, and I feel for them. It's really hard to get places.
Yeah.
And so, in our POCD, it talks about making that a walkable area.
That's a good point.
It
yeah.
barely is now, and it
Yeah.
is not, this would not improve that.
But we have houses scattered all over Mansfield. And people get in their cars to go get things.
Right,
Yeah.
But that's in an area where there are people that don't have cars and they're
Right.
right. You see people walking up from Foster Drive Apartments,
Yeah.
Yeah, on the sidewalk.
mm-hmm.
Not on,
But they can't get to the other
can't
side.
get to the other side.
I have a question. Are all the banks, because the banks, CVS, I know Dunkin' Donuts, both Dunkin' Donuts were grandfathered. They weren't?
No, that would be called what I would call an interpretation that dates back a very long time. If you look at the definition of restaurant in our regulations, it involves seating. And so if you're doing food service, but you don't have seats, you are not a restaurant. You're just retail. And so in our regulations, when you look at restaurants and the special permits for restaurants, in every district where we allow restaurants, it says no drive-through facilities permitted. The same is not there for retail facilities, which is how I believe we got to banks and CVS and the Dunkin' Donuts that don't have seating, because they were considered to be retail, and there was no prohibition on a drive-through associated with a retail use. And I keep looking out to the audience because our long-term 30-plus year zoning agent who knows more about this than I do is in the audience tonight, and he's kind of nodding along with me, so I'm like, all right, I think I've got it. But that's how CVS and those got in, because they were not restaurants. And then the only non-conforming restaurant drive-through that I'm aware of is McDonald's, and that my understanding is the regulations were changed after the McDonald's went in to prohibit drive-throughs for associated with restaurants.
Go ahead.
I agree with Sarah on PB1 zone being, it's not walkable. I mean, I blunt, I got a teenage daughter, and she works across the road, and she walks it every day. So, I mean, she goes to, there's only one light, we don't know if it works, but
It's not near.
it's just not a walkable place, and she's young, I mean, she can certainly drive, but she walks, she's 16, so there are kids from the condos who work at the Mickey D's, who work at the, who work at the Farmer's Cow and at the pet store and everywhere else. So we have to make it walkable, because kids are gonna walk, those are jobs for them, and they have to get there. So, to agree with Sarah, that zone in itself creates unless there's a footbridge over or something, there's gotta be a way that people can get there.
John, you need to use your mic.
What?
Yeah, I have not been able to hear you on your mic.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, the light was on. Do I have to say that again, or no?
We heard you.
So,
Okay.
and I think, going back to the proposal, the applicant tried to address that. That was one of the things that from the drafting I worked with them on, was to try and add some things. The question is whether or not they did, enough from the commission's perspective to balance the auto-oriented drive-through with walkable features.
I think those were words. I don't think, I don't think that was realistic. And with what we know now, it's not realistic to be walkable.
I just wanted to there is sort of a third drive-through that's popping up that I've been to, and so when you talk about limited service window, would we be opening ourselves up to people standing with iPads, paying, ordering, and then you going to the window and picking up your food?
I think that's a good point. That's not the intent. If you're thinking of the chain I am, it's actually one where they have a full service window, but during peak times, the way they manage that peak traffic to get people moving quicker is they, as Jolene put it, they put staff, and I will tell you, very, neon, but you may be 5 cars back from the menu board and you're ordering, and they're just doing it via phone, via app. I don't know that it's the entire time the drive-thru's open, but I think it's more that's that chain's way of dealing with peak traffic to make sure, and quite frankly, that would be, if this is going to sound weird, that's not a bad thing to me, because essentially what they're doing is saying, we understand that if we hit peak lunchtime, that we may get more vehicles than we can handle in a queuing line. And so the way they deal with it is to say, we are going to push these cars through as quickly as possible. So, you're going to be ordering almost as soon as you pull in. And I want to say they have probably at least 6 people out there that are handling ordering, paying, everything, so that by the time you actually get to the window, the literally only thing you are doing is being handed your food and you're on your way. But yeah, I think that to me is the full service, because you're still ordering in line, if that makes any sense. You're not ordering in advance. You've pulled up, you're in your car and you're ordering, whereas the limited service window is intended to be, you ordered somewhere else and then drove to the site to pick up your food. But that's a good point.
Okay.
That is the
I'll throw this in as a question, just having listened to both of you describe this. So let's say we go with our limited service window. that's our idea of what limited service ought to be. What stops somebody from doing exactly what you've described? We're-
I believe, and I'm just going to pull up the actual proposal because I think it's going to go
the
back.
enforcement side of it
It's
is what I'm talking about.
you know, and I don't. All right, we're going to go back to the last meeting because it's not in this packet. Okay. Okay, so
It's
what's
pickup window,
what's on the screen are the definitions that the applicant included for the so a drive-through facility would be a commercial facility where the customer drives a motor vehicle onto the premises and to a window or mechanical device through or by which the customer is serviced without exiting the vehicle. This shall not include the selling of fuel at a gasoline station or the functions of a car wash facility. And so again, not parking, so it's not your park and pick up food, it's you're going to a window or other device. Limited service window. A limited service window associated with a drive-through facility is a pickup window that allows customers to pick up an order without having to park and exit their vehicle, and where the ordering for such order was performed remotely, i.e. via telephone, website, or mobile app, rather than at a menu and or order board on site. So I think what Jolene is saying is, does that need to be clarified to say that it also is where you're ordering in the drive-through facility lane, not just to
Well, I mean, you're technically ordering via a mobile app
Yep.
and not on a menu board.
Approving this, are we?
So
That's part. Yeah.
Part of this?
Yes, because this is the
That's
July.
definition for limited.
This is the July 22nd draft.
Yeah.
So this is, I think what Jolene is saying is, based on that definition, does the Chick-fil-A model of dealing with peak traffic suddenly cease to be a full service? And again, I think they have a menu board, but the question is, if you have someone else who comes in and says, I don't have a menu board, I've got staff standing out in the drive-through lane.
That's not what we want, I don't think.
No.
Because that brings us back to the traffic issue. Right, because if we got people out there, it's because we got so many cars, but that's how we're gonna handle the additional
Well,
traffic.
then this brings up something more. I didn't connect this, but they're saying a minimum of 10 queuing spaces. Are we gonna approve this now?
So
A minimum of 6 queuing spaces. I
that
like this.
So the queuing spaces, that was the reason that you saw the distinguishing, and the reason that is highlighted for limited service versus full service window goes back to the discussion with the traffic authority, where originally it was just a number of queuing spaces for a drive-through facility, and the traffic authority said, we think you need to distinguish. But again, that is your bare minimum. That is not, if you come in and you provide 6 for a limited service window and 10 for a full service window, you're good to go. That's what I would call your starting point. Your traffic study is going to have to demonstrate that whatever you're proposing actually is what you need. And if your traffic study comes back, or a peer review comes back and says, I'm sorry, for a full service window in this location for this type of facility, you need 15 queuing spaces. That's where you go. This is setting the bare minimum. Think of it as a setback. We set minimum setbacks. It doesn't mean the commission can't say, in this particular case, we think you need a larger setback or a buffer. This is setting the minimum. You can't go below 10 for a full service. You can't go below 6 for a pickup window. You can require more.
So if we pass this motion, it doesn't mean that we can't limit it to 1, or make a more.
I don't think it's given them proper guidance, because
Not
I mean,
at
I
all.
hope that we don't go along with the minimums, and if it's going to be a full out project. I mean, looking at the things that we're approving wait a minute, there's one more spot I had. Eliminating the maximum front setback. I don't know. I'm unhappy with it the way it is, but I don't know what it should be at this point.
Carlita.
So I think where I keep going back to and thinking about is ultimately we're still talking about special permit. It's not set in stone. And it's a case by case basis, if I'm understanding this correctly, no matter who, what type of project is proposed. So we have a little flexibility
I hope we have.
and leeway, to say, and we don't know, even as this pandemic unfolds, we can't say what the wave of the future is going to be for how we receive products, goods, food lines, and so on and so forth. So I kind of like the idea of having this flexibility, because we still, if it comes in front of us, can say, no, this doesn't, we would need to see more acreage, for instance. Or no, this doesn't seem to be in compliance.
I would like to see more realistic guidelines. I don't think we should just go with the bare minimum and then come back at them and say, oh no, this is not acceptable. So I would like to see stronger guidelines than what we're giving here.
I think the other question I have in terms of the acreage part, so they had talked about 4 restaurants in this, with 2 of them having drive-through windows. And so I feel like that needs to be clarified too. So if you have,
That's what they bring, to us.
I mean, that,
Say we don't
right, but
want
it just
4.
seems like the acreage part needs to be more specific to
and-
number of businesses.
Well, and again, I would suggest you have, and this is kind of where it gets messy when we have applicants proposing amendments related to specific projects.
Yes.
Because, quite frankly, this amendment, as much as they are asking for it to facilitate being able to file a special permit application, if you approve this amendment, it is not about what they are thinking of doing on one particular site. You are setting the basic
Right.
standards for anyone, in terms of any drive-through facility, as well as any restaurant in the Planned Business 1 zone that would like to have a drive-through, what the requirements, the minimum requirements are to be able to ask for a special permit. So that's why I don't want to get hung up on
Right.
what they're proposing, because again, that's your special permit. When someone comes in, can the site accommodate what they are proposing to do in terms of a mix of businesses, types of drive-through facilities, full service, limited service? That's something you would have to decide at a special permit. The one thing I would note for Vera in terms of the standards is, ultimately you do have to feel that the standards are right. The one caution, and I will just give this, is that, again, any objective criteria in here, 10 queuing spaces, 6 queuing spaces, you cannot reduce them. So if a traffic study came in and said, you know what, for this particular use, you only need 3 queuing spaces, you can't reduce it. You still have to have 6 or whatever the minimum is, because under McKenzie, they can't come in and say, well, by my traffic study, I only need X. So I'm going to, nope, you are going to have to provide 6. Whereas if we bump them, so if you bump them up, you can't go less, you can go more. And that's where I know that in terms of some of the language, one of the reasons we had the town attorney look at this was to work and make sure that this was consistent with McKenzie.
So actually, we have more flexibility by putting numbers that are too low than by putting numbers that are too high.
Well, I think originally it was, I'm not sure there were, I'd have to go back and look at the original draft. I'm not sure there were numbers in there, or if there were. I think it was something where there was concern that it was not sufficient. Again, that's why it was revised based on feedback from the traffic authority to distinguish between limited service and full service and what those queuing requirements would be.
I think it needs more study before we approve it.
Paul, I have an additional question, maybe Linda, but it's something Sarah raised at the last meeting. If we change that frontage requirement, are we eliminating the possibility of having a sidewalk there?
No.
Okay.
So and I believe, you're talking about the setback.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So
the
yeah,
setback.
the setback was you created a maximum setback of 20 feet, and the idea was to bring buildings up. There's also one of your standards in Article 10, Section R, basically, says parking should be to the side and rear of buildings rather than in front. So I believe what is proposed in this latest draft authorizes you to eliminate the maximum front setback line if you meet all
Okay.
of the criteria that are listed. And so in this case, the criteria would be the elimination of the setback line is consistent with the prevailing front setback lines on neighboring properties and continues existing visual patterns, e.g. location of buildings, sidewalks, and parking areas. That the elimination of the maximum front setback is necessary when considering factors such as lot size, lot configuration, and reduction of impacts on regulated areas in order to accommodate the safe and efficient traffic circulation associated with the drive-through facility and is supported by the traffic study. The proposed layout incorporates other amenities or improvements to activate the street frontage, enhance the streetscape, or improve pedestrian accessibility. Such amenities or improvements may include, without limitation, the following: provision of outdoor dining and seating area in front of the building. 2, creation of a clearly defined direct pedestrian access from the street line to the front entry of the building. 3, inclusion of street furnishings or other landscape features to establish the street line. And 4, provision of bicycle racks. So in order to eliminate that front setback, you basically have to find all of those criteria have been met, so that the proposed setback is consistent with what's around you, that it is needed to accommodate safe and efficient traffic circulation. So think of that a little bit in terms of an alternatives analysis. In other words, the applicant has to demonstrate, I can't have a safe facility without this waiver of the setback. That it doesn't function on this site unless you do this. And then 3, that they're providing other amenities or improvements to facilitate that pedestrian friendly and to accommodate pedestrians and balance out that automobile orientation. So
I think, in my opinion, I think we have the flexibility to create what Vera would like to have, even though it doesn't specifically say what Vera wants to have. And I would, at least, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I would, for example, if you were to say just one, I would go along with that. But I'm leaning toward accepting this flawed motion, and then when they come for the special permit, then we'll ask them to do what we want. And if I understand this correctly, we can, in the end, decide on.
You have the power through the special permit if you find that it doesn't meet the approval criteria. I mean, it's not this. I want to be clear. This is not an arbitrary. We don't like this.
Right.
We're denying
But-
it. It's
but if we have a reason for it.
Yes. If you look at the criteria and say no, we don't believe that you have met you have not met the criteria to waive a front setback. You have not demonstrated, with our peer, if our peer review consultant that you hire is not satisfied that their traffic study meets the requirements that are outlined, and that you meet the overall special permit criteria, which I think
There's really 2 traffic pieces here. One is Connecticut DOT, right?
correct.
And the other is whatever our peer
And-
review consultant,
And again,
their analysis of the applicants.
correct. And this is the chicken, the egg that we go through a lot. Connecticut DOT is not going to give an answer until you give an answer. So they're
I
Just-
forgot.
just they can have conversations, but they're not going to. One of the things they look for when someone comes to them for a permit is, do you have local planning and zoning approval? And if you don't, then you're not ready to speak to
You're
us.
not gonna get it.
But so that's one of their criteria. So that's, again, it's the chicken and the egg. They want to see that the planning and zoning, and so you might, but again, you could approve something and DOT could say, we're sorry, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they need to make changes, and in which case they may have to come back to you. And that's part of the process.
Are we ready to move to a vote? We have a motion on the table. It's been seconded. So
Has it been seconded? I didn't have who seconded it.
I have John
DeVivo,
DeVivo
second
as
by
a
DeVivo.
second. Okay.
So, I mean, you have options. Someone can put forward an amendment to the motion,
Okay.
in which case you can vote on the amendment and see if that passes.
Would
you
anyone like to
can-
put an amendment to the motion?
You can, I'm just going to lay these out here. You can put forth an amendment. You can table this for additional discussion at your next meeting if you have specific questions in terms of additional revisions that you want to run by the town attorney. So, or you can vote. Those, to me, I think are your three options. Delene, can you think of any others?
What were you going to run by the town attorney? The
So
lot
it-
size?
So if you wanted to make additional, so what we have sent him is what you have before you.
Right.
If
He answered that?
yes,
He did.
yep,
Okay.
and he said this was fine. So if you want to do additional revisions, so, and I don't know what those might be, that's something that, rather than adopting it tonight, we can run those by the town attorney if you give me something specific to say, are you good with this?
I think we're never going to get a perfect document, no matter how many times we ask the town attorney. But
That's just more for
In my-
can you do it? That's
in my opinion, yeah. So I'd be leaning toward taking a vote now, unless someone would like to make an amendment or table it.
I know we have all this discretion, but when push comes to shove and they bring it in and all their experts are telling you this and that, we are more lenient, and that's my only concern. I just really wish we had something a little stronger, that perhaps only one drive-through per site, of no less than an acre or an acre and a half. But I don't know if the rest of you feel that this was fair enough and that we can work with it and that we will work with it.
I can assure you, I will work with you on this.
Good. Okay, then I won't try to make an amendment that I don't know how to word.
if you have an amendment, I can help you with. If you tell me what it is, I can help you.
Well, I mean, I hear you saying with a special permit that we will try to make it the best we can, and not maybe rubber stamping what they bring in, so.
And I think we got to remember too that this is not just the one place. And I can understand nobody wants to see a whole row of McDonald's and Burger King and Chick-fil-A and all of this lining in that area. It's already pretty congested with different things. And whatever we do, we want it to be fair to all the businesses that might be coming in. And, yeah,
Or it's gonna be first come, first served,
right.
like it is
Yeah, I mean, the acreage, that's a big thing. That we can't, that way you would bring them out a little bit more than what we've got proposed.
PB1 is a relatively limited. Where are PB1? What all is in PB1?
farmer's cow and, farmer's.
I mean, I can't. identify everything, but
Is there another part of town where it has PB1 or just that part?
no. So all the planned business districts are unique. So it's
that's
the it's
just
the
that
it's the
one
southern
area.
portion of town. So it includes Eastbrook Mall. It includes.
That's what I thought too.
So one of the things that I believe, and I just wanted to double check this.
Yes, goes over to Connersville.
And I can't remember where it is, so bear with me.
Yeah, and
It does not apply to Four Corners, for example.
So no, it does not. And the applicant did add a specific criteria for the Plan Business 1, which is you have to have your primary access on an arterial road, and you have to meet
that's over
Or-
northwest.
the standards that are established. So
Yeah, it's not a.
the reason for that is because Conantville does have frontage in the Plan Business 1 district. So you'd have to have frontage on an arterial, which would be either 195 or I believe North and South Frontage Road also meet the arterial classification.
So it's a pretty limited area. We won't turn into Vernon immediately. Not that I have anything against Vernon. Okay, I think we're ready to take a vote on this. I'll take a roll call vote.
You can just go, if you want to just go.
Yeah. Cotton?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
No. Aho, yes.
No.
Ward, no.
Yes.
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 No.
No.
Okay, so just so I want to just make sure I have this because my writing skills are not as fast. So
Corsi,
John,
Ward,
Vera,
and DeVivo.
and Sarah were no's. And everyone, and the rest of you were yes. So 5-3.
5-3. And I'm glad we have bipartisan against and for. That's much better.
All right, so the motion passes.
So the special permit application of Robert Cardinal has been tabled. Do we need to do anything with cannabis tonight?
No.
No. That's,
the-
that's just
the-
information in there.
The information, so Jennifer attended a webinar, so she attempted to just quickly type up some notes for you, and also,
Print that out.
hmm?
I couldn't print that out.
You couldn't print out her notes? Well, I wouldn't print out the attachment, which I
Don't
believe
print
is
it-
the bill.
it's
Yeah,
very long.
the bill is very
Oh, no,
long.
I know, 300 and some pages.
Yeah.
So okay, if you had an issue with the attachment, we'll see if we can get it to you. I think I may have taken a shortcut and attached it as a Word document, but I thought it converted it to a PDF, but maybe not.
So we can move on to new business?
You can move on to new business.
Okay.
I didn't realize
And
that, but it makes sense that if you
should we start with this one?
So I would go in order item
Okay.
A.
Okay, so item A is interpretation of what constitutes a dwelling unit.
Wanted to this afternoon I uploaded a email from the homeowner. Has everyone seen that? Because I didn't see it, so I wanted to make sure, or I was going to read it if people
I saw it, but I don't get it.
had a chance to see it. Okay.
See it.
And I wanted to also point out that I believe we have Mr. Malloy with us here tonight, so he is here.
So the email is up on the two monitors. For anyone who didn't see this, and I think Jolene, when I went to add something for Glisten, it hadn't been published. So I think it was uploaded but not published. So it was published when. So Jolene, do you want to do the overview, or do you want me to?
I'm happy to just give you a really brief overview. I've been working with Mr. Malloy for probably a little bit over a year on this issue. So he's been patient, and this is the outcome. So the question is, are the building permit layout that he has proposed, does it constitute a dwelling unit?
So, and I think this is to give the commission a little bit of background. This is not, I would say, generally speaking, a new question for us. This is something that, and I think Kurt is here, given his previous experience, he stopped in today to be like, oh, I'm curious about this because it was something he dealt with for years as the zoning agent in terms of, when does something go from being just living area to a dwelling unit? And, especially when you think of the fact that most of our town is zoned for single family uses, that becomes an important distinction. And so, what you have in the report are some of the, the existing layout of the upstairs. This is new layout, no kitchen, living room, bedroom, office. There's an existing bathroom upstairs. I think they're doing some renovations to that today or as part of this project. New layout with a kitchen, and then one that just has a refrigerator, countertop, sink. And then so the issue, and we tried to put in various definitions, but the main one that we're dealing with is dwelling unit. A building or portion thereof providing independent living facilities for one family, including provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. And so these are the things that if you have provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation, we consider it to be a dwelling unit. And so the question, quite frankly, usually comes down to what does provisions for eating and cooking mean? That's at the end of the day. We can clarify sanitation. Julie and I had this conversation this afternoon. What does sanitation mean? I'm like, well, that would mean you can bathe, use a toilet, a full bathroom. And I don't think that has ever been a question for anyone in terms of what sanitation means. It comes down to cooking. So the way in which this has been interpreted by staff for many years, and I'll let Kurt correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you had a stove or a cooktop or an oven, so basically a cooking appliance that is kind of a permanent fixture in the kitchen, that is when we say you have eating and cooking facilities, or you've made those provisions. If you are just you just have countertops and you're plugging a microwave in on the counter, so something that's portable, removable, no, because it's not part of the structure. So if you're just putting, so if you were to have a little kitchenette with a kitchen, a dorm size refrigerator, and you plug a microwave in, we would not call that eating and cooking provisions in terms of what constitutes a dwelling unit. When you start getting into, so it's been the stove and the oven, and so I think that's where we've landed is if you're doing that, you're providing cooking facilities. The issue that came up with regard to this specific application is, what if you don't install the stove, oven, cooktop, but you put the wiring in for it, and you put in the plumbing that could support the addition of those appliances and fixtures later. And so that's really, I think, what brought us here today, and I'll let Jolene correct me, but I think that's where we ended up was, at a staff level saying, if you're putting the wiring in and you're putting the plumbing in, then you're providing for cooking. You're providing for cooking at that point because, it's not something, we're not in those units once so that was the staff interpretation. And so the owner basically said, well, wait a second, I don't think this is right. Can I, can we get a more formal interpretation? So Julian and I talked about it and basically said the best way to do this is to come to the commission and say, what constitutes a dwelling unit? At what point do we transition from living area that's just part of your house where you've put in a bar and, to make for convenience purposes, and something that really kind of now steps over and becomes a dwelling unit, again, per the definition, for one family, for independent living facilities for one family, including provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. And the reason that becomes an issue is because in the RAR 90 district, which we have throughout most of town, the only way you can have a second dwelling unit on your property is either if you meet the criteria for a duplex or you meet the criteria for an accessory dwelling unit. both of which require owner occupancy. And so those are the ways in which we provide for you to get an additional dwelling unit. And that's why this question comes up so frequently. And I will tell you from an enforcement standpoint, we've had people and we said, you need to remove, if you installed an oven and a cooktop, even if you got an electrical permit from building, which quite frankly happens because they're not coming to us for a zoning permit, they're going in for the electrical permit for the conversion for that appliance, and building goes, yeah, sure, you can have an electrical permit. For us, that becomes basically the addition of that one appliance has triggered something where when we've had properties for sale, we've told people you need to remove that. You can't advertise that as a dwelling unit. Even if you got your electrical permit, you can't advertise that as a dwelling unit.
I have a question. So, say a person decides stairs, but they're not going to have anybody live there. They're just going to do it for resale value maybe or something like that later on. But then they decide they're going to make it into another dwelling unit, so to speak. Do they have to come back to planning and zoning or come back to you to get a permit?
It depends what's in your remodel. I mean, and that's what
But
really.
if everything's already there, they've got hookups for water, hookups for electrical, but nothing is in there yet. But they've got all these hookups, and where do they go from there?
That I think is why we're here. Is
Right, because the dwelling is still subject to the definition of family. And if the occupants don't meet that definition, the owner is subject to a notice of violation and all that goes along with that. I just wanted to point out one thing. Mr. Malloy in his email has suggested sort of a compromise, which is to use layout C. I don't know if you can throw that up, Linda. Yep. To amend its scope of work to specify that wiring for a wall oven and built-in cooktop will not be connected to either the electric panel or the wall outlets. Connecting the wires to the panel and outlets would require a building permit. While lots of wires get connected without a permit, we are inspected every 2 years by Ben. So that's because the house is a rental. The house is a registered rental house with the housing program. So they are subject to inspections every 2 years. An electrical permit would never trigger the building official to prompt a review by me. I don't look at electrical permits. It's not something that they would ask me to look at. They would not look for my approval on that.
Those are typically issued those are when I was in Orlando, we called those counter permits. Those are, you come in, you have a license, you're getting your permit. It's not like a renovation or something where they are coming and asking us, does this meet zoning requirement? When you're dealing with electrical, mechanical, plumbing, we don't review any of those. None of those get referred to us.
So to your point, Katie, the renovation of a kitchen, if somebody's renovating their basement, to include all of those items that we talk about as a dwelling unit, does prompt the building official to say this needs Jolene's review. And the building permit doesn't get issued until I have signed off. And if it looks like a dwelling unit, then they have to meet the criteria of your regulations.
So, it seems to me that if you meet the criteria of being a permanent resident there and you want an accessory dwelling, then you should, at that moment, get your approval for the electrical and the efficiency and the cooking and everything all at the same time. It shouldn't be a step-by-step process where we'll put in some of the wires even though we're not legal yet, and then we'll put in some of the other wires, and then eventually we'll do it. It seems like it'd be cleaner to just say when you've got all your ducks in a row that you are, that you qualify for an accessory dwelling, that's the moment when you should do your renovation. Because why do the renovation if you're not, it's not going to be legal?
So I think this is the opposite situation. So we're not trying to create a unit, we're trying not to create a unit.
Right.
Yeah, why do all the wiring if you're not doing it?
So, Mr. Chair, would you
Yes, yes.
allow?
Sure, yeah. Come on up. Yeah.
Turn the microphone on.
It's always good to have a real live example to ask.
So my name is Bill Malloy. We're at, we own the property at 28 Birchwood Heights Road.
So can you explain to us a little bit
So we're,
why you would want to go part way instead of going all the way and being an
Well, the-
accessory apartment?
so the reason is that the upstairs apartment, which is the part that's the remodel here, we're trying to make it so that it's a place that we can just come. We come right now just 3 months a year. We live in Mexico. We rent for 9 months, live in it for 3 months. So we're going to be here for another 2 weeks. We're trying to make it so that we aren't moving upstairs, downstairs all the time. So we're remodeling the entire upstairs unit. And while we're doing that, the walls are open, the floors are open. To do that again in the future, if we decide to switch to an ADU, will cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So we're trying.
So let me see if I understand this correctly. You, at some time in the future, you may want to live there permanently.
That's right, or at least 6 months a year, which is the criterion.
Right.
Yes,
But you're not going to do that now.
not doing that now.
Okay.
But because of the remodel in the bathroom, the bathroom is the room where all of the plumbing exit goes through, all the plumbing supplies come in and out, and where the plumbing exit goes through. Once that's all tiled and done in, it'll cost a tremendous amount of money to go back in and add the plumbing. The plumbing is the biggest concern. The electrical wires, we've actually, I'd like to hang them there and not use them, but we've got conduit now and we could run the wire later. And so perfectly willing to even do without hanging the wiring there. That's not the big deal. We'd like to be able to have a sink and counter space. And we're not
Okay, but
trying-
here's the part I don't understand. If you're coming back 3 months, why not just live downstairs?
because we don't want to have to move furniture in and out for the tenants. We want to have our own place up there. We have our own furniture. We're there. It's locked off. But we're trying to make it not an independent unit by to become a dwelling unit. You need to meet all of the elements of the definition. If you miss one, if there's no sanitation, it can't be an independent dwelling unit.
Right.
If you don't have cooking facilities, it can't be an independent dwelling unit. So we're trying to make it so that we include as much as we can, but not include elements, an essential element, so that it's not an independent dwelling unit. Then at the point in time when we want to make the switch, we add one unit and one element and
So
apply
if
for
I
the
understand you
ADU.
correctly, you would live in the upstairs 3 months of the year and have the downstairs empty?
no, we live in the downstairs too during those 3 months. We don't need an independent kitchen upstairs because we have access to the entire house while we live there.
Right.
No tenants.
Right.
Tenants move out in May, tenants move in August.
Okay.
We move in May, we move out in August.
So you could just use the kitchen downstairs
That's the
and renovate
plan.
your bathroom and bedroom upstairs.
Yes. And again, because of the particular layout, you kind of have to see how the whole thing is strung together, but it's not easy to get connections between the main house and the upper house. And so while the walls are open, we want to make provisions so that if we want to make this change in the future, we can do it without spending tens of thousands of dollars.
Uh-huh.
And again, we're trying to be very careful. We understand what the rules are. We understand what the occupancy limits are. Trying hard to follow those. We never have the tenant, we move out on August 14th, the tenants move in on August 15th. And we just take the definition. Here's what a dwelling unit is. Dwelling unit requires cooking. We're going to eliminate something that's essential to cooking. And it seems like making any change to that definition that would condense wires in a wall being constitute cooking would mean that somebody could meet the definition for a dwelling by hanging wires in a wall and not installing a kitchen. That's the problem you have.
Yeah, I see the problem is that you're kind of in between. You're not one or the other. You're falling between the cracks. So
I don't understand what you think we're between.
Well, you're thinking about a future where you're going to live 6 months, but you're not doing that. That's only
Yes.
potential. You may or may not ever do
May not ever do that, in which case we would just live with the plan as it currently is.
Oh.
And we have an oven, we have a range, have an extra bathroom, we have guests that may come to stay with us. My dad's visiting us right now from Salt Lake City, and we treat it as a regular house with all of its facilities for 3 months, and then during 9 months we have our stairs, our part locked off so that nobody has access, and the tenants live downstairs in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house.
And up until now, that has functioned fine. The problem is that you're
No,
trying to
it's-
renovate at this moment, and you want to make it so
It has-
potentially you could have a kitchen upstairs.
It hasn't functioned fine because it's not air conditioned, it's not a layout that we like. So what we've been doing is we've been storing our furniture upstairs, and then every year we have to hire somebody to move the furniture from upstairs to downstairs. And then before we leave, we move it back up and use it as storage. So we're trying to transition from a system where we're moving furniture, using the upstairs apartment as storage, and living in the same space as the tenants all the time, to where we have enough space where all of our most of our furniture, anyway, stays in this apartment, but we still go downstairs for the kitchen. We still can use the living room. We can use the extra bathroom. The granddaughters come over and sit in bed, sleep in bedroom number 2. We use the laundry down in the basement. So we use the whole house while we're there. But that's, again, just for 3 months. During the 9 months, we lock the door. This year, the tenants broke in. But that doesn't normally happen. But
Okay, I think
Can I ask a
we
question?
understand. Yeah.
yeah.
So what are you anticipating in the future? I'm not clear about that.
So at some point, we may be interested in changing our schedule to stay as much as, so right now we would stay as much as 4 months if there weren't the restriction of living with the tenants. And we may be willing to change our schedule so that we live in Mexico for 6 months, live in Connecticut for 6 months, and in that case, we would qualify for an ADU, and we would come to you, and
And where would you live?
we would live in the apartment, the one that we're talking about here.
Upstairs. The upstairs apartment.
Yeah, the upstairs part, right.
Okay.
The tenants would live downstairs, yeah.
So is this a multifamily? Because he keeps referring to apartment.
This is not.
Well,
this
it's
is
not-
a
it's
single
not a real
family
apartment.
dwelling.
Well, then you keep using the term apartment, so that tells me you want a second dwelling on the site.
So again, I'm being very careful to not include all of the units so that it's
You said the word apartment too many
No,
times.
it's a single family house, and what I've explained to Mr. Malloy is this situation appears to be extremely unique to me. I am not aware of any other single family properties, and Kurt may be, but where they are not either a rental or owner occupied. This is both. And this is a unique situation for us. as far as I know. So I think that's where we're getting,
And
you know,
and I would say this in similar to the discussion you just had at length on drive-throughs, while this is a unique situation for this particular property, the interpretation that you make applies to every property in town.
Oh, I understand that.
So that's something that is the commission. You know, the question it really becomes, again, at what point do you have cooking facilities, and does the installation of the wiring, the mechanical, the plumbing needed to support
Right.
cooking appliances, at that point have you crossed that threshold? If you don't ever put the stove in, if you've put in what's needed to support the stove, have we then crossed the threshold and said, yes, you've created a dwelling unit at this point? You've provided, you have provisions for cooking, whether or not the appliance is there at a given time. Does that constitute provisions for?
So do you not have the problem of interpreting that in the other way? In other words, somebody has a dwelling unit, all they have to do is put in wiring and not complete the kitchen, and now they've qualified as having cooking facilities and completed a dwelling.
The challenge for us, quite frankly, from an enforcement standpoint, is, as Jolene said, what do we see when? And with electrical permits, we don't see those. That we're seeing this because of what came in on the initial floor plan. And it becomes that issue. If someone comes in for an electrical permit separately, we don't see that. And so that if something gets converted, quite frankly, when we typically catch up to it is at sale. And and I will give an example that there was a property listed in town that was listed as having 3 dwelling units. It had the main house, the efficiency unit that had been approved by the commission, and at some point the owner had taken the upstairs, his daughter had moved in, and he put in a little kitchenette. And when he had come in for his permits through building, it was for, I want to say, like a sink and a refrigerator. So it's kind of like a little rec room bar area. Fine. You have cabinets, you have counter. It wasn't an issue. At some point, he put an oven in a stove, and a full-size refrigerator. And then they were advertising it as 3 units. And we said, no, you don't have approval for that. Take the stovetop out. And that probably took us 6 to 9 months of working with him to get him to agree to take the cooking facilities out. They stopped advertising it as a 3-bedroom, or a 3-unit. But that's where, especially, as Mr. Moline noted, as a rental, we're in there every 2 years. If this were sold to another property owner that we're living in the house, we're not in there. We have no ability to go in that unit at all once it's owner occupied. The only reason that anyone from the town is in the unit is because it's a registered rental right now. So
I understand.
Okay, thank you. I think we understand your situation now.
Okay.
So we need an interpretation.
So Julian and I have given you 2 options, and I would say you could delete number 2 on either of them, since what constitutes sanitation doesn't seem to have ever been a question. So, one is if you are installing that. So one option is that you interpret the definition of dwelling unit contained in Article 4, Section B as follows. Provisions for eating and cooking shall mean any space that includes the following appliances and fixtures: stove, oven, and or cooktop, sink, and storage for perishable food, i.e. refrigerator. Provisions for eating and cooking facilities shall also include the installation of electrical, plumbing, and mechanical systems that would allow such fixtures or appliances to be added at a future date, regardless of whether such fixtures or appliances are initially installed. That's one option. Another option is to interpret it that provisions for eating and cooking shall mean any space that includes the following appliances and fixtures: stove, oven, and or cooktop, sink, and storage for perishable food, i.e. refrigerator, installation of electrical, plumbing, and mechanical infrastructure to support such appliances / fixtures shall not in and of itself be deemed to be provisions for eating and cooking. So those, I think that's the heart of what we're talking about, correct, Jolene?
yes, that is correct.
We need the wisdom of Solomon. Ken?
Just a point of view, but then I guess we all have just a point of view. To me, I see this first statement as to what a dwelling unit is, and I think that that's one that we need to hang on to.
So, do we, would someone like, we need a motion, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so would someone like to put that forward?
Julian, does that bring some clarity if that's what the consensus is?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Put it on.
okay.
I move to interpret the definition of dwelling unit contained in Article 4, Section B as follows. 1. Provisions for eating and cooking shall mean any space that includes the following appliances and fixtures: stove, oven, and/or cooktop, sink, and storage for perishable food, i.e. refrigerator. Provisions for eating and cooking facilities shall also include the installation of electrical, plumbing, and mechanical systems that would allow such fixtures or appliances to be added at a future date, regardless of whether such fixtures or appliances are initially installed.
One more line.
No 2.
Oh, we don't need that, we don't need it, okay. All right, moved by Ward,
I'll second it
Okay.
for Tony.
second by Tony. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay. Are we finished?
No.
We're not finished.
Sorry. So you added 2 new items of business. Item
that's
B,
right. Okay.
Item B,
Yes. We have,
Mr. Verge is not here, so I think you can table this for now.
We'll
If
table
he
Verge.
comes in the next, before you're done, you can move on that.
and we have C.
And then C. So item C was a last minute addition today. We have been working with the town attorney. So just to give the commission a refresher course, we are what is considered a damp town in Connecticut. So under Connecticut statutes, up until this summer, well, actually, still, towns can determine whether or not they want to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages. So you can be a wet town, which means you allow any permit that the state authorizes. You can be a dry town and allow no alcohol sales. Or you can be somewhere in the middle and say, we choose to allow these permits, and that's it. So Mansfield has been in the middle as a damp town since, I want to say, the 1950s, when this was first adopted. And
In the 50s we were dry, because I was here.
Okay. Well, anyway.
You remember that.
So maybe I take it back. It was the 1960s when we first adopted the ordinance. Up until, I want to say, June of this year, the only way to amend the list of permits that you had allowed for alcohol sales in a municipality per statute was to have a petition of 10% of your voters put a question to referendum. So to give you an idea, the one and only time our list of permits was amended was 1983. It has not been amended since then. I can tell you, since I've been here in the last 10 years, there have been folks who've been interested, but quite frankly, that petition requirement was too high a bar to try and collect that many signatures. So actually, at Mansfield's request, Representative Haddad sponsored an amendment to the statutes. We actually started this pre-pandemic in 2020, and because the entire legislative session went kaput with the pandemic, it didn't happen. But it did happen this year, which essentially towns still retain the ability to decide what they want to allow. However, instead of requiring a petition and a referendum, it's now up to the legislative body for the community to make that decision, just like every other ordinance that's dealt with. So the town council on July 26th put forward and scheduled a public hearing on an amendment to the ordinances. And I will tell you, we are taking this slow. So I know the chair asked earlier if we were becoming a wet town, and the answer is not yet. At the recommendation of the town attorney, what we're trying to do is really address the kind of the pressing issues. So, for example, We have two pending requests. One from Kirby Mill to do a tasting room with the wine manufacturing that you've approved. The second one was actually for a brewer that had gotten approval from the farmers market to sell at the farmers market, and when they contacted us for a permit, we had the misfortune of having to say, "I'm really sorry, but I can't issue that." So the what went to the council was to add those two permit types, as well as a third permit, which is quite frankly a clarification, and it's the patio and extension of use permit, which quite frankly we routinely approve. So if you have a restaurant permit, if you want to have a patio permit, we've been approving that. But this is where being damp has its, misfortune, is technically we probably should have had that listed because it's a specific separate permit under liquor control. So we added that as a clarification. The council, during their discussion, questioned whether or not we could add other things such as farm wineries, farm breweries, things of that nature, brew pubs, things that the commission had somewhat considered in the past. So that may get added to the ordinance. I don't know where that is, but the hearing on that is scheduled for August 9th. In talking with the town attorney today, as he was reviewing that ordinance, he said, "Oh, and by the way, you need to change the zoning regulations." Because Article 7, Section D, under accessory uses, back when we amended the regulations to eliminate the special permit for alcohol sales, we said, here are the uses that you can sell alcohol as accessory to, as permitted. We don't have a manufacturer's permit listed there because we didn't have a manufacturer. So manufacturer of wine, cider, mead was not listed as a use in which you could sell as accessory. So his comment was basically, if you want to allow Kirby Mill to make the request for a tasting room, you have to first amend the regulations. So quite frankly, trying to anticipate based on the council's discussion, what I did was prepare a draft amendment for your consideration that does essentially three things. One, it adds the following uses to the list of uses to which the sale of alcohol is considered accessory, and something that Jolene can just, as a zoning agent, sign off on the liquor permit for. And those additions are farm brewery, because we already had farm winery listed, so we would add farm brewery, farm distillery, manufacturer of wine, cider, or mead, and farmers market. So again, trying to cover the two requests that we have pending, as well as a couple of other farm-related production items. The additional changes would be in Article 7, Section G, uses permitted in the RAR 90 zone, where you already allow farm wineries with special permit approval, is again to expand that to farm wineries, farm breweries, and farm distilleries. And then to add a new section that says farmers markets shall be permitted by right, provided they are located on the site of a government facility or use. Otherwise, special permit approval must be obtained in accordance with Article 5, Section B. So again, we've quite frankly been silent on farmers markets in our regulations. Obviously, we have a farmers market that operates. So by adding this to the list of uses and saying if you're on a government, site of a government facility or use, then you don't need a permit from us. But again, it allows then that accessory permit for alcohol sales. And that would actually be added to RAR 90. And then the Pleasant Valley Agricultural Resident Zone. Again, we allow farm wineries there. So adding the farm breweries and farm distilleries. And lastly, uses permitted in the institutional zone, the same language regarding farmers markets being permitted by right as long as you're on the site of a governmental facility or use. Otherwise, you need special permit.
And the only thing we need to do tonight is to schedule a public hearing.
Correct.
I think
If you guys are
do that.
support that.
Is there someone like to put that forward? Thank you.
Item C, Plan and Zoning initiated amendments of Article 7 of the zoning regulations related to the Move to schedule a public hearing for Monday, September 20th, 2021, to hear comments on the planning and zoning proposed amendments to Article 7 of the Mansfield zoning regulations related to the manufacturing and sale of alcohol, dated August 2nd, 2021, PZC file 90752. The draft regulation shall be referred to the town attorney, town council, agricultural committee, economic development commission, SECOG, NECOG, and adjacent municipalities for review and comment.
Moved by Plant,
Second.
second by Ward. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. And now we're done, right? Not that I want to be done.
Just you do, but just one note. We will be canceling regulatory review at least for August 12th and maybe the 26th because I'm going on vacation and I'm trying really hard not to work on vacation.
You need a vacation.
Yes.
Yes.
Badly. Go.
We are adjourned at 8:30. And
Get out of
we
cotton
may not be
soup.
back for quite a while, till after Delta.
I am headed out of state and really praying that the state I am headed to does not end up in a